Okay, it's September the 2nd, 2019. George Webb here on the Diplomatic Back Channel. And a lot of folks in watching my series want a map, a network diagram, a sort of a whiteboard of how all the players fit together. And as I've said a couple of times on my channel, it's more important at first to understand what the facts that have been presented to you by MSM and a lot of alternative channels. And there's your Osprey, there's your global Osprey with shipping weapons in one direction, drugs in the other for Operation Cassandra, for just one example. And it's important to understand what the story isn't. Crossfire Hurricane has been pushed out to you, all the president's men sort of thing, a story, collusion with the Russians, people are being arrested all around Trump, all that. And the way I like to do that is just knock down the existing narrative first and then replace it with the correct narrative or the much more likely narrative. And it goes something like this. For instance, to start off, Felix Sater, longtime informant, a longtime DIA informant, has Osama bin Laden's 4 different cell numbers, long time in Trump Tower, over at least 13 years, going all the way back to Trump Soho. And then the other kind of follow-on to him is Michael Cohen, again, a longtime informant placed there by the DNC with Trump over 10-year period. Now, you may not remember this story, but in about October of 2015, as the campaign is cycling up, there's an offer of Trump Tower to be sold for Moscow, Trump Tower Moscow. And if you remember, Felix Sater, one informant, makes an offer to Michael Cohen, yet another informant, giving a plan for Trump Moscow to Mike Flynn, yet another person who's going to be offering it to Trump or Jared Kushner. All 3 of those folks working in something called Crossfire Hurricane. This is the first lure, again, when 3 informants all meet, and maybe Flynn isn't an informant in this case, but it would be hard to believe that Michael Flynn wouldn't know those two longtime DIA informants, especially giving weapons to Osama bin Laden. He wouldn't know that they're DIA informants. So really you have this group of 3 DIA informants, or 1 DIA chief and 2 informants, presenting a plan, the first lure, if you will, and that was called the Crimea Peace Plan, and the Trump Tower Moscow. So you know right off the bat, as far as October 2015, everything you've been presented about Flynn being a victim, not true. Then you take the case of Paul Manafort, having a long-term relationship, going all the way back to Gerald Ford with Stefan Halper, who is the guy who seems to be setting traps going all the way back to Nixon and Watergate. And then, of course, who knows him for those 2 decades period of time? Carter Page, by his own testimony in front of Congress. Again, the whole idea of Carter Page as a victim leaves your mind, and now you start seeing that as yet another whole set of lures for different plans for doing deals, again, probably in Ukraine, probably some kind of energy deal, offering those to different people in the Trump campaign. Then other characters start emerging like Roger Stone, Michael Caputo, Sam Clovis. Again, long-term history with Paul Manafort, probably sort of involved in terms of doing communications and sort of social direction inside these campaigns, going all the way back to Palmer Bank between Roger Stone and Stefan Halper. So super PACs, etc. Very political operatives. And it's looking like almost everything initially, as far as the candidates that are put around Trump, or the staff that's put around Trump. That must be a Libya global osprey or a Syrian global osprey. He's really loud. He's David Grange sort of global osprey there. But early on, everyone surrounding him seems to be CIA. If you remember, George Papadopoulos offers the Hillary emails. And we know another person that was sitting in that same table, the picture with Sessions, Trump, and George Papadopoulos. Sitting right next to him is a guy named Joe Schmitz, who again somehow comes about these emails on the dark web. He's associated with this guy named Peter Smith. He finds this guy named Patriot. He goes to all the different intelligence agencies. And again, one of the key war profiteers from the Cheney and Bush years of Iraq. And we keep seeing more and more repeats of that same pattern with the different things that happen with Trump. The takedown, which is the assessment of Trump. Again, Brian McCauley, Bijan Kian, Akeem El-Tepkin, the Turks that come in, Jim Woolsey. Just seems to be an endless parade of CIA and DIA around Trump to take him down. And once you clear all that away and realize that the Crossfire hurricane, what it really means is that not only was the DNC paying MI6 and Christopher Stevens and his whole team of Russian GRU operatives, not only was he paying all those people to collect dirt on Trump and try to take down Trump, but the other side of Crossfire hurricane is from the right. He was trying to pay all these people like Steve Bannon, Flynn, and Carter Page, George Papadopoulos. He was all those folks. Really a true Crossfire hurricane. And once you have that, then you have the model for properly understanding who would benefit and what's the modus operandi. And that's where I go to Genie Energy and I say, look, let's go to the controlling world energy supply. Let's go to the actors that are the same repeating characters in every episode, and it's Kissinger and Associates. Going all the way back to Nixon again, when Kissinger is the Secretary of State. Again, in the same drama. If you want to look at Scooter Libby being the protege and teacher of George Papadopoulos and Carter Page, you can do that. But if you really want to go back to the roots, you go back to Henry Kissinger, and you look at the key top people in Henry Kissinger's orbit. You've got, first one is APCO, A-P-C-O. If you spin the letters around, it's capo, maybe the boss of bosses, maybe that is Kissinger as a capo. You've got Jim Woolsey, you've got Bill Richardson, again, all key energy guys in the CIA. You've got obviously Jeff Epstein, you throw in Les Wexner, you throw in all the folks like Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, up at that upper area trying to do this world energy, control the world uranium markets, oil and gas and so forth. And you really get to the base of the story. You really get to the guts of the story, which is Carter Page is running around over the last 20 years as a CIA informant doing energy deals. Papadopoulos about 10 years, and also throw in some weapons deals with Maersk and this Greek defense minister named Kamenos. And then yeah, my point, I guess, is you have to kind of clear away the wreckage or the fake stories and see people who, for who they really are, Bannon, etc., being the backstabber of Trump or Mooch, and the true colors always seem to come out. Sooner or later, somebody's going to do some kind of backstab on Trump. You just expect it. The last one we're waiting for, obviously, is Mike Flynn, and they're going to have a tough time there. And of course, Bijan Kian, they may be trying to retry the Bijan Kian case. So I guess that's my start with Genie Energy. You've got the other players, like the Harvard players like Larry Summers. You've got obviously Rupert Murdoch, very closely associated with Les Wexner and Mark Rich. They bought a movie studio together. I guess they're pretty much associated. And then you basically can see the underlayment for what it is. And again, it's a complete Trojan horse. Project Cassandra is probably a perfect metaphor, because the Trojan horse you were sold, where all the president's men, all the Trump's men were falling, like the days of Nixon. That was the Trojan horse. And if you bring it in, like Cassandra said, you're going to lose. But if you keep it outside and say what it is, it's a fake, and you understand it's the Genie Energy folks behind that are pushing this narrative, it's all going to make sense.